merciful. May God's peace and blessings be upon His holy Prophet Muhammad and the purified members of his household and progeny. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight we will inshallah continue where we left off. We're trying to explore the sermon that has been very recognized and very well known in Islamic history and Islamic scholarship as Al-Khutbah al-Fadakiyya, the sermon regarding Fadak. And we said the idea initially is that simply we want to make sure that we have at least a rudimentary understanding of the sermon. I think in a lot of cases we may be hearing about the sermon being referred to here and there. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, I think we don't really have that much of an understanding about what was said in that sermon, the contents of that sermon. The problem, as we said the last time we met, is that the sermon is, first of all, it is very rich in content. And so secondly, in addition to its richness in content, it's recognized as a historic sermon for a number of reasons. Obviously, there is a political dimension to it. Obviously, there is a ideological dimension to it, and inshallah we'll go through those today very quickly. But in addition to all of this, there's also the eloquence, the rhetoric and the eloquence and the language that is used by Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam that would require an extensive study if we really wanted to delve deeply into this sermon. And we don't really have time to do that. We're trying to cover the entire sermon in one sitting. This is what we're going to be doing today, inshallah. Perfect. So given this, what we did is that, and in case anyone missed the first session, what we said is that we are going to try to provide at least as much context as possible around the sermon before we go into the sermon, so that when we actually read it, we actually go through the contents of the sermon, we have that context in mind and we don't have to repeat those points. Given this introduction, these premises that we're presenting, given the shortness of the time that we have, the brevity of the time that we have, I think it goes without saying that we're not trying to recreate the entire context, the historic context of the events that took place at that time. We did a little bit of that previously. I believe it was the event related to the demise of the Holy Prophet, where we went through a quick exploration and presenting one possibility of how those events unfolded in the weeks leading to the demise of the Holy Prophet and then right afterwards. So that would be a good point to start. The truth, however, is that there were many injustices committed against Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam specifically, as well as against Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam in general, including Imam Ali alayhi salam. And that would require an extensive study on its own, to go through all of these events and all of these injustices one by one, to try to see, in some cases, we think that something may have happened once, when in fact it may have happened more than once, and so on and so forth. So we're not going to go through any of that today. We're also not trying here to establish the status and the rank of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Suffice it to say that there is a consensus that the Holy Prophet has said that she is the foremost and the preferred and the chosen and the best of the ladies and the women of paradise. And that is something that is accepted as a matter of consensus amongst all Muslims. And there is a matter of consensus around the fact that the Holy Prophet has said that when she is pleased, that is equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being pleased. And when she is angry, that is equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being angry. With all that this statement implies. That, and this in itself would require a thorough and extensive discussion that we don't have time for right now. So we are not trying to re-establish the historic sequence of events that took place, nor are we trying to establish the rank, the status, the position of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. That's the first point. The second point is, I think it's important that we try to keep in mind a little bit of the points, the context that we tried to establish the first time we met. So we said that, as a quick recap in 1 minute, the Holy Prophet had given a land called Fadak to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam in year 7. The Holy Prophet passes away in year 11. During those years, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam managed that land and received the profits from that land. One of the first things that happened once the Saqifa took place and Abu Bakr became the Khalifa is the decision to confiscate or take back Fadak from Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and to say that this now belongs to the common treasury, to the public treasury, basically to the state. And she was asked to produce a number of witnesses when she came and argued her case. The witnesses that she presented were all rejected, and we went through those details. So she adopted a different strategy, and she tried to argue that if the land did not belong to her, because the testimony of her witnesses was rejected, then at least she should inherit the land because she's the only daughter of the Holy Prophet, and this is something that the Holy Prophet would have owned, so naturally it should go back to her. And that argument, or that line of argumentation, was also rejected, and we went through those details. So now we are at a point where she actually comes to the mosque and she is about to deliver the sermon. So I think the context that we provided, the insistence that we gave on the fact that the sermon of Fadak is not about a land called Fadak. And the sermon of Fadak is not only about the fact that the land of Fadak represented a good source of financial revenue, nor is it only a matter of political significance and giving her political capital and political status. Yes, and yes, those are valid points, but there's a lot more going on here. So inshallah, you will remember the points that we tried to establish last time, and you try to find them in the words of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, as we will go quickly through the actual sermon. And of course, the version that I have is going, I'm guessing, to be a little bit different than the version you have. But I think generally speaking, and we'll talk about this, generally speaking, the contents of the sermon of Fadak, there's a very good consensus about it. There might be a little bit of a wording difference between one version and another, but generally speaking, the entire sermon is considered extremely authentic, extremely valid, and I didn't want to spend too much time on the authenticity of it. That would require its own discussion to go through the entire chain of transmission and to see which authors have relied on it throughout history on both the Sunni and the Shia, both in the Sunni and the Shia schools. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any time on the authenticity. I think it should go without saying. Except very recently, no one has ever really questioned the validity or the authenticity of this sermon being attributed in its entirety to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam throughout the history of Islam. Okay, and the people who have narrated the sermon come from both schools of thought. And if you want a non-Islamic source, so although the author is a Muslim, but he did not write the book for Islamic purposes, Balaghat al-Nisa is a book written to show the rhetoric and the eloquence of various women throughout history, and it's the second sermon in that book. Okay, so that's even from outside of the, let's call the Islamic literature per se. In any case, as we said, the sermon itself is extremely rich. If we wanted to spend time going through the sermon and commenting on it, it's not an exaggeration to say not every sentence, every fragment of a sentence would require a lecture, without any exaggeration, and some of them would require more. All we're trying to do today, as we said, is simply to go through the sermon to try to put ourselves in that time and in that place when Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam actually walked to the mosque of the Holy Prophet right after the demise of the Holy Prophet at that time and delivered the sermon. So that inshallah, at the end of this, we can at least say we know what the sermon was about. What did she say? And we'll comment about a few things that I think need a little bit of comment. Otherwise, try to put yourself more in the shoes of the people listening to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam as she was delivering that sermon, to see and to re-establish the points that we tried to make. That the sermon is more about ideology. The sermon is more about theology. The sermon is more about imamah. The sermon is more about the right of Imam Ali alayhi salam to be the rightful successor to the Holy Prophet than about a piece of land. So inshallah, as we go through this, you will be able to recognize those points and how she presents it. And again, as we said, the sermon is extremely rich. I will comment here and there about the structure, about the main points being made. Our scholars have said and again that the sermon is considered a crash course on Islam. So if you consider Islam a set of beliefs and a set of laws and a set of ethical and moral values, then you are going to see a crash course of the entire system of Islam in one sermon. So that's why when we say it's difficult to comment, to give the proper interpretation and commentary and significance of the sermon in one sitting, it's kind of an impossible task. All we're trying to do is to provide this quick overview. So at the beginning of the sermon, and I guess I will leave it up to you to follow me or follow in the versions that you have in front of you. The beginning of the sermon is before she actually addresses, so this is not a direct quote. The sermon starts, so I'm starting from the beginning of the ruwayah. So if we go back to a book of narration, this is what we would see as after the chain of transmission. We would see when the rawi, the narrator, starts to tell us about what he's going to say. So this is not her direct speech. So we are told, it is quoted in the book of Al-Ihtijaj of Shaykh al-Tabrasi from Abdullah ibn al-Hasan. So Abdullah ibn al-Hasan, very quickly, I said I won't comment too much on this. Abdullah ibn al-Hasan is the son of Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba. So Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam had a son called al-Hasan al-Muthanna because he was the second. So this is his son, okay, Abdullah ibn al-Hasan. So you can see that this is still the lineage of Bani Hashim alayhi salam. So this is the grandson of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam saying, who relates from his forefathers that when Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam was informed that Abu Bakr had confiscated Fadak, she put on her veil and cloak, and accompanied by the woman of Bani Hashim, came forth stepping over the edges of her robes. Her walk in no way distinguishable from the walk of the Messenger of Allah, peace upon him, until she entered the mosque facing Abu Bakr, while he was surrounded by the mass of Muhajirin and Ansar and others. So a drape or a curtain was placed between her and them. That's the first paragraph. Very quickly, just to mention here, for people who sometimes, I think in the past, in many of our discussions, we've mentioned the hijab, people looking for different references, direct or indirect to the hijab. You have a very clear reference to the hijab here, where Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is not only said to be wearing the hijab, it's a very specific description of her hijab, where we are told that when she walks, her foot keeps stepping on the edges of her robe, which means that the robes that she is wearing to cover even her feet. So when she walks, she doesn't say it trips, she trips, she steps on them. Okay, so that gives you an idea. That's one. And two, when she reaches the mosque, there's a curtain that is placed so that when she addresses them, they do not see her and she does not see them, although she is directly addressing them. Okay, so this speaks to, sometimes in our communities we talk about, is it important, is it good, is it bad, should we seclude, should we not seclude? We have hints about, some Islamic references. This is one of them. In any case, so the Rawi continues. So she sat, he says, then she moaned a painful sigh, as a result of which everyone in attendance wept and until there was a great commotion. So she paused for a moment until the crying of the people calmed down and their outburst cooled. She began by praising and thanking Allah and sending peace and blessings upon the Messenger of Allah. This made people weep again. When they stopped, she began speaking again, saying. So this is, from now on, we're going to be starting the direct quote of the actual sermon. A couple of points here, very quickly. This is not an aimless action from Fatima Zahra alayhi salam when she does this. The fact that she sighs or that she moans in this sad, sorrowful, depressing way to make everybody weep in this manner before she even speaks a word. Nothing has been uttered yet. And everybody in the mosque, if you read the Arabic, clearly there's very loud crying and weeping going on just from the side. There's a few different aspects we can mention here. As I said, I want to go fast. The only thing I'm mentioning is link this back to Karbala. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have a way, and this is important for us because we talked about the importance of the effective way of reaching people, the messaging. Imam Hussein alayhi salam in his actions in Karbala, of course there is a rational, philosophical, strategic, analytical dimension. But there's also an emotional dimension. And the emotional dimension is what connects with the hearts of people. And Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam use that dimension to connect with the people when it is needed. So she starts by connecting with the people's hearts. And keep in mind that the Holy Prophet has just passed away. And people are connected to the Holy Prophet. So when she comes and they know who has come, and she does what she just did, this has a major significance and it sets the tone for everything that will be said from this point on. So the first part of the sermon is going to be about praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and talking about Him. She said, "Praise be to Allah for that which He bestowed upon us, and thanks be to Him for all that which He inspired, and tribute be to Him for that which He provided. From prevalent favors which He created, and abundant benefactions which He offered, and perfect grants which He presented, such benefactions that their number is much too plentiful to calculate, bounties too vast to measure, their limit too distant to realize. He recommended to them, His creatures, to gain more of His benefaction by being grateful for their continuity." So this is where we start getting into the meanings of what she's saying. Basically, if you want to get a continuity, you want to get continuous bounties and benefactions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she's telling you how to do that. You need to show your appreciation and your gratitude to the bounties you have, and then they will increase. This is a shukr through action. So she says, He recommended to them to gain more of His benefaction by being grateful for their continuity. He ordained Himself praiseworthy by giving generously to His creatures, and promised through supplicating Him to give more like them. So these are the two ways to get the bounties of Allah. You thank for what you have, and you supplicate Allah for what you don't have. "I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who is one without partner." This statement of saying there is no God but Allah, la ilaha illallah, a statement which sincere devotion is made to be its interpretation. The interpretation of la ilaha illallah is sincere devotion. Sincere devotion basically means that uttering the words is not sufficient. You have sincerity, so you actually believe sincerely in those words, and it comes with devotion. Amen. There are rituals associated with uttering the words. The words by themselves don't mean much. The words have simply meant that you have uttered the words. You need the sincere devotion to give them meaning. Sincere devotion is made to be its interpretation. The content of hearts guarantee its continuation, and illuminated in the minds is its conceptual meaning. He who cannot be perceived with vision neither be described with words, nor can imagination surround his state. I'm not going to go into those last three statements, but basically she just summarized all of Tawheed and all the disputes and all the philosophical arguments between the different schools of thought in Islam since the 14th centuries. She basically said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be seen, He cannot be fully described with words, and the first part is He cannot be perceived by vision, described with words, nor can imagination fully surround Him. So that opens the door to understanding the essence of Allah, the attributes of Allah, what is included, what is excluded, and all of that. Again, no time for the details. He originated things, so He created things, but not from anything that existed before them, and created them without archetypes to follow. Rather, He created them with His might and dispersed them according to His will. Not for any need did He create them, nor for any benefit did He shape them, but to establish His wisdom, bring attention to His obedience, and make mighty His call, leading His creatures to humbly venerate Him and to exalt His decrees. He then made the reward for His obedience and punishment for His disobedience so as to prevent His creatures from His wrath and to gather them towards His paradise. Now she's going to start a new line of argumentation, a new theme. And that's why I said we could spend a whole lecture talking about how she transitions from every part to another. She's about to begin talking about the place of the Holy Prophet ﷺ with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with the people. And again, as we said, remember that the Holy Prophet has just passed away. And this is important for her line of argumentation. Okay? She says, I too bear witness that my father Muhammad, and this is very important, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, very important. Notice that she does not mention the Holy Prophet without saying both things. She always says he is my father, and she always says that he is the Prophet and Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That on its own is very important. Okay? So keep that in mind. It's going to come back again and again. I too bear witness that my father, Muhammad, is his servant and messenger, whom he chose and preferred him prior to sending him. So this is the entire discussion about who becomes a prophet, when does one become a prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does He choose any random person and make them and impose prophethood on them, or are there some criteria? Okay, so keep all of that discussion about general prophethood and the philosophy of prophethood in mind. She says, whom He chose and preferred him prior to sending him. And He named him before picking him, when the creatures were still concealed in the hidden world, preserved by the great curtains of concealment, and linked with the termination and annihilation of non-existence. Because Allah is the knower of the end state of all affairs, and because He encompasses the events unfolding in time, and He knows the position of everything. So this has to do with the eternal, infinite knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of things before they occur, and based on that absolute knowledge, He chooses His prophets, including the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah has sent him as perfection for His commands, as a resolution to accomplish His rule, and an implementation of the decrees of His mercy. He found the nations, so the Holy Prophet, found the nations scattered in varying faiths, obsessed by their fires, worshipping their idols, and denying Allah despite their knowledge. So Allah illuminated their darkness with my father Muhammad. He uncovered from their hearts their obscurity. He polished the clouds from their insights. So He rose with guidance among the people, delivering them from blindness, leading them away from misguidance, inviting them to the upright religion, and called them to the straight path. And then chose to recall him back. So now she went quickly through the prophethood of the Holy Prophet. She summarized his entire mission quickly, and she says, and he has passed away. So this is a reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calling back the Holy Prophet as in his death. Allah then chose to recall him back, a calling of mercy and choice, love and preference. So Muhammad is now in comfort from the burdens of this world. He has been surrounded by righteous, devoted angels and engulfed in the satisfaction of the forgiving Lord and the nearness of the mightiest King. So may the praise of Allah be upon my father, his prophet, the one he entrusted with his revelation, the one he chose with his remembrance, the one he preferred from his creation, and the one bestowed with his pleasure. May the peace of Allah be upon him and his mercy and blessings. This can be considered as, and many of the people, the scholars and the preachers and those who give sermons, they start with a praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and shahada, so this was hers. Now she is about to start addressing the people directly. So the introduction is done, but the introduction already set the tone. That's why we're saying it's a crash course on Islam. Now she's about to start addressing the people, and notice how she insists that the fact that you associate yourself with my father, the Prophet, means that you have to accept a religious responsibility, or a religious duty. So now question yourself, have you done what goes hand in hand with that duty, with that association with the Holy Prophet or not? Okay? So the narration says, Fatima then turned to the crowd and said, "Surely you are Allah's servants with regard to His command and prohibition. You are the bearers of His religion and revelation. You are Allah's trusted ones upon yourselves and His messengers to the nations." So she gives them a responsibility towards themselves, and she gives them a responsibility towards Allah, and she gives them a responsibility towards other people. He has a right and authority over you. So you can say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, or the Holy Prophet has. He has a right and authority over you. A covenant He brought unto you, and an heir, a successor, and an heir He left to guard over you, which is what? That is the speaking book of Allah. So here some of our scholars say the external clear meaning is the Holy Quran, but the internal meaning is Imam Ali alayhi salam, representing the speaking book. That is the speaking book of Allah, the truthful Quran, the dazzling light, the shining beam. Its insights are evidently indisputable. Its intentions are revealed. Its indications are manifest. Its companions are the object of envy. So this is most likely Yawm al-Qiyamah, in the afterlife. People who were considered to be Ahl al-Quran, people who were companions of this book, people who were really followers of the Quran, are going to be the object of envy of everyone. Because that's when people will know their true status. Its companions are the object of envy, and its followers are led to divine felicity. Listening to it leads to salvation. Through it are the bright divine arguments accessible, His manifest will acquired, His prohibited decrees avoided, His manifest evidence recognized, His sufficient proofs made apparent, His permissions granted, and His laws written. Now she's about to start another section where she starts to mention some of the rituals and laws of Islam. So this is the fiqh part. But she adds a component that usually people refer to as the philosophy of the laws and the philosophy of the rituals. A lot of people, we could spend a long time talking about each one of these and the hidden philosophy. Our scholars have written many books. What's the philosophy behind the prayer? What's the philosophy behind the takbir or the ruku' or the sujood? What does it mean? Okay, and we have riwayat from Ahlul Bayt about this, and the rest is more analytical and people reflecting on it. And this is a contentious, big topic. We're not talking about it now. Can we actually get to the real philosophy, to the real wisdom, to the real purpose behind a law or an action or a ruling or a teaching in a religion or not? Okay, so this is something to keep in mind as a big topic. But let's go through the manner in which Fatima Zahra alayhi salam presents the main tenets, the main rituals, the main teachings of Islam, and this is more in the practical teaching side. She says, so Allah made belief, al-Iman, so Allah made belief to be purification for you from polytheism. He made prayer a cleansing to you from arrogance and conceit. Charities, a purification for the soul and a cause for growth and subsistence. So this is maybe something that, in our world today where we might view it as counterintuitive. If you want your wealth to grow, a good financial advisor will tell you to invest your money and to put it in a savings account. According to the theory of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, she says to make your sustenance grow, to make your wealth grow, you invest with Allah. Okay? You put it in charity, you do zakat. Alms, a purification for the soul and a cause for growth and subsistence. You want your rizq to grow, we have many riwayat. People come to the imams and they tell them, I have problems, financial problems, I want my rizq to increase. And the imam tells them, give sadaqah. You have nothing to give. You're coming to the imam to tell him, I have no money. And the automatic reaction of the imams usually is give sadaqah, which is not really how we think, so something to keep in mind. Fasting and implantation of sincere devotion. Pilgrimage, a raising of the construction of religion. Justice, a harmonization of the hearts. Our obedience, and these are two very important statements from Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. Our obedience, so she's talking about Ahlul Bayt. Our obedience, so obeying Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Our obedience and orderliness and discipline for the nation. You want the nation of Islam to be orderly, to be structured, to be organized, to be functioning well. You only need one ingredient, which is obedience of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Our leadership, or our imamah, she says, imamatuna, our leadership, a safeguard from disunity. Okay, so never fear establishing the imamah of Ahlul Bayt clearly, because it may cause disunity. Keep that in mind. Jihad, a might for Islam. Patience, a helper for earning reward. Enjoining the good, a welfare for society. Kindness to parents, a protection from wrath. Maintaining close relations with one's kin, a cause for a longer life and an increase in numbers. And the numbers here can be understood as in descendants. Compensatory justice for sparing blood. Okay, so this is applying the legal system in Islam, because if you do that, then there's no more revenge being taken. Fulfillment of vows and promises, subjecting oneself to forgiveness. Completion of weights and measures, in other words, al-kayl wal-mizan. So when you give someone, give its full due, do not hold anything back. Completion of weights and measures, a discipline against cheating. Forbiddance of drinking wines and exaltation from shameful abomination. Avoiding slander, a veil from curse. Abandoning theft, a reason for bringing forth chastity. Allah has prohibited polytheism so that devotion to His Lordship becomes pure. Therefore, fear Allah as He should be feared, and die not except in a state of Islam. Okay? So in appearance, she is simply repeating the very basic foundations of Islam. Obey Allah in that which He has commanded you, and that which He has forbidden you, for surely those who truly fear Him amongst His servants are those who have knowledge. And then, this is when she is going to very quickly, to say so, shift gears and make her case and make her argumentation a lot more direct. O people, know that I am Fatima, and that my father is Muhammad. I say that repeatedly, and I initiate it continually. I do not say what I say mistakenly, nor do I do what I do aimlessly. When she says, I say that repeatedly and I initiate that continuously, in other words, she's saying, I will keep saying that. I have no doubt about it. If I need to repeat it, I will keep repeating it. Okay, it's something I say, it's something I will repeat, and I will keep repeating. I am Fatima, and I am the daughter of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the second part is, the clear way to say it is that she's establishing her asma for those who want to understand it that way. If you want to take that argument to its full, conclusion, I do not say what I say mistaken, nor do I do what I do in aimlessness. Now hath come unto you, so she's reading a verse from the Quran, now hath come unto you a messenger from amongst yourselves. It grieves him that you should perish. Ardently anxious is he over you. To the believers he is most kind and merciful. In other words, she's saying, and all those characteristics, I'm his daughter. I should be representing the same thing to you as he did. Thus, if you identify and recognize him, you shall realize that he is my father and not the father of any of your women, and the brother of my cousin, or another way to understand this is my husband, the son of my uncle, or my father-in-law, the brother of my cousin, rather than any of your men. What an excellent identity and attribution that is. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and his descendants. So here, she's establishing one, the status of the Prophet, and two, the relationship with the Prophet. And this is important, but she sneaked something in there, if we can say it that way. She started openly now talking about Imam Ali alayhi salam, where we said this is the whole point. The point is not about Fadak. There's something a lot bigger than Fadak here. She just established something for Imam Ali alayhi salam that should not go unnoticed. He is my father, and no one else can claim that the Holy Prophet is their father. And he's also the brother of Ali, and no one else can claim that he is the brother of Ali, or someone else can claim that he is the brother of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is obviously a clear reference to the multiple times the Holy Prophet did mu'akhat. So he did it in Mecca at least once, and he did it in Medina at least once, where the Holy Prophet would ask a member of the Muslims to take another member of the Muslims as his brother, and they would be taking care of each other. He associates people together in this way. And both times he asked Imam Ali to step aside, and Imam Ali alayhi salam at the end says, and what about me? Do I not have any brother? And the Holy Prophet tells him, don't you want to be my brother and I be yours? He did that in Mecca and he did that in Medina. So when she says that's his brother, again, it's something that is very undisputed, very well recognized, and they know exactly what she's referring to.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
And so she says, what an excellent identity he had, and what an excellent attribution someone has to be able to say the Holy Prophet was my father, or the Holy Prophet was my brother. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and his descendants. And then now she goes back to describing the role, the mission of the Holy Prophet. She says he propagated the message by coming out bravely with the warnings, inclined away from the path of the polytheists, striking their might and seizing their throats, while he invited to the way of his Lord with wisdom and beautiful teaching or preaching. He destroyed idols and defeated chiefs and heroes until their group fled and turned their backs. So night dissipated, this is more the metaphorical language, so night dissipated until it revealed its dawn, righteousness uncovered its genuineness, the voice of religious authority spoke out loud, the whispers of Satan were silenced, the crown of hypocrisy fell to the ground, the knots of infidelity and disobedience were untied. So all of this, she is describing how the Holy Prophet worked, and worked hard, and worked relentlessly, sacrificing, struggling, until he was able to make the truth come out and to establish this religion. Okay? And that's when she says, so you uttered the statement of devotion amongst a band of starved, pure white ones. So after all of this struggle, and all of this effort, and all of this work from my father, the Holy Prophet, finally, you uttered the statement of Iman, of devotion. Finally, you entered into Islam. After all of this. And then she adds, amongst, so she's talking to the majority. The majority finally uttered the word of Iman amongst a band, a handful of pure white starved ones. So a lot of ink has gone trying to explain this comment on it. She's basically saying that the majority of the people entered into Islam by uttering a few words. But there were people with the Holy Prophet struggling with him from the beginning. So she's referring to them by saying they are pure white ones. So a lot of the commentators have said she's either referring to their faces being pale because they are always in constant worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she says, and those who starve themselves. They're always in a state of starvation for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the people that did not simply just utter the words. While you finally entered into Islam and uttered the words, those people were with him from the beginning, fighting along him and leading the mission with him. And those were the people that she's describing as the pure white starved ones. She says they were a handful, very few of them. Those did not enter Islam by uttering the words. Those were with him way before, and it's their actions, their purity and their starvation that are the indication of their true Islam. And then she starts, as if this was not enough, now she starts to talk about the position, the status of the Arabs in Jahiliyyah. You were on the edge of a hole of fire. You were the drink of the thirsty one. So basically she's saying, when someone is very thirsty, how long does it take them to drink water? They swallow the water very quickly. So she's telling them that's how easy it would have been for anyone to destroy you, to make you go away, as fast as a thirsty person drinking a bit of water. You were the drink of the thirsty one, the opportunity of the desiring one. So basically you were an easy meal for anyone who would have attacked you. The firebrand of him who passes in haste. So you're just a regrouping of fire, and anyone who passes by can take a piece of it and use it to light the road. You were the step for feet. You used to drink from the filthy, stagnant water. So now she is describing that they were these nomad, barbaric Arabs who had no manners, who lived in this filth and in this, uncivilized manner before the Holy Prophet. Okay? So she tells them, you used to drink from the filthy, stagnant water. And of course, we can imagine in that case, the filth of animals, and they sit in it, they drink in it, so on and so forth. That's how they drank their water. And eat leaves and jerked meat. In Arabic, it's basically dried skin. So she tells them you might eat from carcasses, you might eat the dried external skin of an animal because that's all you had, or just the leaves, just like the other animals. You were despised outcasts, always in fear of abduction and attack from those around you. Yet, Allah rescued you through my father Muhammad after so much ado, and after he was confronted by the mightiest brutes of men, the beasts of the Arabs, and the demons of the people of the book, those who whenever they ignited the fire of war, Allah extinguished it. And then here she comes back to reintroduce the role of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And here, my personal opinion is we are going to get one of the most beautiful and the most accurate descriptions of Imam Ali alayhi salam ever from anyone. And this is Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam describing Imam Ali alayhi salam. So she's continuing by saying these are the wars, these are the problems, these are the issues, the challenges that Prophet Muhammad faced. She says, and whenever the thorn of the devil appeared, or a mouth of hypocrisy and polytheism opened wide in defiance, he would throw into its pit his brother. So imagine that polytheism, hypocrisy, the enemies of the Prophet, she describes them as though They are attacking the Prophet like an animal. Imagine a dragon or a lion or a snake opening its mouth on you. And she says he would take his brother, he would grab him and throw him into the pit, into the mouth of that enemy attacking. He would throw into its pits his brother, who would never come back until he treads its skulls with the soles of his feet and extinguishes its flames with his sword. Indeed, he is one who exhausts himself in diligence towards Allah and applies himself in his struggle for godly affairs. Always near to the Messenger of Allah, a master among Allah's saints and worshippers, brisk and at the ready, sincere in his advice, serious and exerting himself in service, paying no attention to anyone's blame in the way of Allah. So this is the state of the Holy Prophet. This is the state of Imam Ali alayhi salam in trying to establish this religion. And in comparison, the people she's addressing, all that while you were calmly resting in the comfort of your luxuries, secure, playful, and safe, waiting for us to meet disasters, awaiting the spread of our news, staying behind during every battle, and turning your heels at times of fighting. In other words, she's telling them right now, if you have openly turned against us as though you are our enemies, this is not news to us. Maybe you think that this is some sort of surprise to us, that you've been able to dissimulate this, to hide this all those years, as if we didn't know. Right from the beginning, we've always known how you are and how you've acted. There's nothing here that was hidden from us. All of this has always been known. Okay? Your lack of sincerity, where your loyalty was, and so on and so forth. So she says, when Allah chose for His Prophet the dwelling of His prophets and the abode of His chosen servants, the thorns of hypocrisy appeared on you. So this is, in other words, yes, hypocrisy, but also hatred. The moment she says thorns. Okay, so now your hatred is becoming clear. The moment he passes away, you turn. When Allah chose for His Prophet the dwelling of His prophets and the abode of His chosen servants, the thorns of hypocrisy appeared on you. And the garment of faith, so not that long ago during the Holy Prophet's life, the garment of faith, your appearance of being believers and faithful, the garment of faith that you wore, suddenly when he passes away, the garment of faith suddenly became worn out. It's no longer in to be wearing that same garment of faith. It got worn out right away with the passing away of the Prophet. The silent, misguided seducer spoke out. So not long ago, this person was silent, now they're speaking out. The lowly, sluggish one came to the front and brayed. Braying is a sound made by mules and donkeys. So the lowly, sluggish one came to the front and brayed. The vain he-camel then wiggled his tail in your courtyard. What is she saying here? I'm going to go back over it again. And in Arabic, it's beautiful Arabic. And anyways, she's saying that in the time of the Holy Prophet, we knew who the people who had merit and who had taken position and who had sacrificed and who played a role to build Islam. They were well known. And now that the Holy Prophet has passed away, those who were sluggish, those who were lazy, those who never played any role, those who were absent, including those who are now coming out, the he-camel in vain. This is in Arabic, the description is, there used to be male camels that they use for show, basically, for their beauty. But you can't ride them, you can't use them for anything. So they're vain. They're something that you hold or you use in vain. So she's describing the different types of people who suddenly, out of nowhere, these people have come up and they have taken the front and center positions. So this is where she says, the silent, misguided seducer spoke out. So they were always silent. They've never had anything to say. And now suddenly they're talking and giving speeches. The lowly and sluggish one came to the front and brayed. The vain he-camel then wiggled his tail in your courtyard. So he's walking and, suddenly he's something, everybody has to look at them. And the devil stuck his head from his place of hiding, calling upon you. So he found you responsive to his invitation and attracted by his deceitful ways. He then aroused you and find you light and quick. The moment he told you, come, let's do something, the devil, you were light and quick to respond to him, to answer him, and invited you and found you full of wrath. So this is where she's switching. And she's saying how you started to listen to the whispers of the devil against us. The wrath is against who? This is when the house was attacked, this is when the Khilafah was taken, and so on and so forth. So now she's saying, as soon as the Holy Prophet passed away, this is what started unfolding. So you branded other than your camels and proceeded to drink when it is not your drinking place. You brand a camel to say that this is my camel. You put your signature on it so that it doesn't get lost with the other camels. So she's saying now you branded camels that were not yours. And you came to a drinking place and you drank from it, and this is not your drinking place. What is she saying? She's saying you took the khilafah. You sat in a position that does not belong to you. You took something that does not belong to you. This is not yours for the taking, and you took it. Very clear. So to them this is very clear. To us it's metaphorical language. And then in case this was not clear yet, she's not mentioning, see, this is the sermon about Fadak. Fadak has not been mentioned yet. Okay? Now notice what she says. All of this happened. You would think, it takes a long time for it to happen. All of this when the era of the Prophet is still near. The gash, so this is the sorrow, the sadness, the depression of his death should be afflicting you. The gash is still wide. The scar had not yet healed, and the messenger was not yet buried. And this is a key statement here. She basically says, you did all of this and went and took the Khilafah, and all of this was said and done, and the Holy Prophet had not been put in his resting place in the ground yet. This is how fast we moved. Which basically begs the question, so how much of this was premeditated? How much of this was pre-planned? That you're able to move this fast between the demise of the Holy Prophet and the time he is buried, and you were able to take all that is not yours. You were able to brand the camels that don't belong to you and drink from the watering place where that does not belong to you. And then she adds, a quick undertaking, as you claimed, aimed at preventing fitna. Surely it is in fitna that they have fallen, and indeed hell surrounds the unbelievers. How preposterous. What an idea. What a falsehood. For Allah's book is still amongst you. Its affairs are apparent, its rules are manifest, its signs are dazzling, its restrictions are visible, and its commands are evident. Yet, indeed you have casted it behind your backs. What? Do you detest it? Or do you wish to rule according to something else? Then evil would be the exchange for the wrongdoers. And if anyone desires a religion other than Islam, never will it be accepted from him, and in the hereafter he will be in the ranks of those who have lost. Surely you just waited until its tantrum ceased. So now she's basically describing the Khilafah as though it's a wild camel that they're trying to ride. Okay? Surely you waited until its tantrum, you just waited until its tantrum ceased, and it became obedient for easy riding. So the moment you could, you did it. So as soon as the Holy Prophet passed away, you jumped on the opportunity. You then started arousing its flames. So you kept making things worse. You didn't just take it, you made things a lot worse. You then started arousing its flames, instigating its call, complying with the call of the misled evil, quenching the light of the manifest religion, and neglecting the traditions of the Prophet. And here you can see that the situation is basically degrading. She's saying, you took that, and this is where we have to link it with what else was she able to foresee from those events? This is when we say, for someone to understand the events of Karbala, Karbala does not happen in a vacuum. 50 years after the demise of the Holy Prophet, it cannot happen in a vacuum. There are things that had to have happened before that makes the Ummah of the Prophet kill the grandson of Imam Hussein in this manner. So she is basically saying, you have began to instigate against us. You have began this entire mission, this entire direction, this entire movement of wrath against us. And then she says, again, these are complex Arabic expressions to translate, but basically she said, you concealed sips of froth. So the Arabs have an expression where basically you go and pretend that you're drinking the froth on top of the milk. So I'm not drinking the milk, I'm only drinking the froth on top of the milk. But it's a concealment, you're actually drinking the milk. But it doesn't show because it's hidden by the froth. Okay? So you're pretending that you're doing something while you're doing something else. You concealed sips of froth and proceeded towards his kin, the kin of the Holy Prophet, his kin and children in swamps and forests. So in other words, you were saying that you were being very gentle and very peaceful and you were doing something, while in reality you're doing something completely different, and you are willing to walk through forests and swamps, as the Arabs would say, to do it. So you're willing to go as far as you need to do what you want to do. While we endure your actions as if we are being cut with knives and jabbed by spearheads in our abdomens. So here she's saying, the fact that you usurped the Khilafah to us felt like we were being cut by knives and jabbed by spears in our abdomens. This is the Khilafah part. Yet now, and this is finally when we get to Fadak, yet now you claim that there is no inheritance for us. Okay? You see how long it took us to get to Fadak? Now you claim, so in addition to all of the injustice, and in addition to all of everything that you have done, and everything you have usurped, and all the rights that you have confiscated and gone against us with, in addition to all of that, now you dare to come and claim that we cannot inherit anything from the Holy Prophet. So Fadak is one more calamity to add to everything else that had already happened. What do they then seek the judgment of the days of ignorance? This is a verse of the Quran. Basically, you want to go back to the way you lived in the time of Jahiliyyah? Is this what's happening here? But who for a people whose faith is assured can give better judgment than Allah? Don't you know? Yes, indeed, it is obvious to you like the sun at noon that I am his daughter. O Muslims, will my inheritance be usurped? O son of Abu Quhafa. So now she is addressing the first Khalifa, Abu Bakr. She is addressing him by the name of his father. She's saying, you son of Abu Quhafa. So the majority of the people would say Khalifa. But because she does not consider that a legitimate position, he's not valid as a Khalifa, she does not address him as a Khalifa. Nor does she use the honorific title of someone. So Abu Bakr, in his case, it's not his name, it's the honorific title you give someone you respect to call them by their beautiful name. She calls him by his father's name. So I'm calling you by what you really are. You are the son of your father, Abu Quhafa. But there's more. Because who was Abu Quhafa? The father of Abu Bakr was a very simple servant who worked as a servant his entire life. He was a slave. He was owned by a family. And his job was basically to bring food from basically the kitchen to place it in front of them when they eat. That was his job. And we are told he would sit there and wait for them to finish, and then he would eat their leftovers, or he would lick them, or whatever. And the issue is not that he's a slave or a servant. That's besides the point. The point is that he is not someone who played any role in Islam. Others played roles, regardless of your social status. Is there a role for you to play or not? Do you take a position or not? Did you ever do anything or not? And this is, of course, in comparison to everything that she just said about Imam Ali, for instance. Okay? So she is basically putting him back in his place by saying, O son of Abu Quhafa, where is it in the book of Allah that you inherit your father and I do not inherit mine? Surely you have come up with an unprecedented fabrication. Do you intentionally abandon the book of Allah and cast it behind your back? Do you not read when it says, and Sulaiman inherited Dawood? And when it narrates the story of Zakaria and says, so give me an heir as from thyself, who will inherit me and inherit the posterity of Ya'qub? So these two verses that she recites, what does she establish with them? Specifically that prophets do inherit from each other and leave an inheritance, because that was the claim against it, right? And now she's going to give 3 more verses, and those verses establish inheritance laws in general, which apply to prophets and non-prophets. And when it says, so when the Quran says, but kindred by blood have prior rights against each other in the book of Allah. And when it says, Allah thus directs you as regards to your children, to the male a portion equal to that of 2 females. And it says, if he leaves any good, that he make a bequest to parents and next of kin, according to a reasonable usage, this is due from the pious ones. You claim that I have no share, and that I do not inherit my father, and that there is no blood relation between us? What? Did Allah reveal a Quranic verse that was specific to you, and from which He excluded my father? Or do you say these are the people of 2 different faiths? They do not inherit each other? Are we not, me and my father, a people adhering to one faith? Or is it that you have more knowledge about the specifications and generalizations of the Quran than my father and my cousin? Again, Imam Ali alayhi salam comes back, and this is an attack from a different angle. So she attacked him from antecedents, from the time of the Jahiliyyah to the time of establishing Islam, to the lineage, and now she's coming at it from the knowledge portion. Who should be leading the Ummah? Should it not be someone? So do you claim openly in front of the Islamic Ummah? She tells him, or do you claim, will you even make the claim that you are more knowledgeable about the Quran than Ali? Will you make that claim? And of course, who would make that claim? So she tells him, so here you are. Take it. So now she's talking about Fadak. So she's telling him, you've done all of this just to take Fadak? Take Fadak. It's not about Fadak, but take Fadak. But how do you take it? In what state do you take Fadak? She tells him, so here you are. Take it. Ready with its nose rope and saddled. So basically like a camel ready to be for the riding. Awaiting your encounter on the day of the gathering. So take Fadak now as a ready camel, but know that is going to be waiting for you Yawm al-Qiyamah. This land that you're taking in this manner. Awaiting your encounter on the day of gathering. Thus, what a wonderful judge is Allah, and a wonderful claimant is Muhammad, and a wonderful day is the day of rising. At that time of the hour shall the wrongdoers lose, and it shall not benefit you to regret your actions then. For every event there is a time limit, and soon shall you know who will be inflicted with torture, that will humiliate him, and who will be confronted by an everlasting punishment. Now she is done with the Khalifa, with Abu Bakr. She turns to the Ansar. There was a question that we received last time, did anyone do anything? The short answer is no. There's a lot of explanation, but the short answer is no. So now she's turning to the Ansar. She tells them, O you people of honor, the strong supporters of the nation, because these were the people who helped the Holy Prophet. These were the people who rescued the Prophet from Mecca, who told the Prophet to you, we are going to protect you from the mushrikeen, the polytheists of Mecca, who are trying to assassinate and kill you. Come to us. When others refused, the Holy Prophet tried to create an alliance. He tried to go and find another place. Medina was far away for him, and he was not able to. No one would risk having Quraysh as their enemy. And the Ansar told him right away, come, we are going to protect you. And they believed in him right away, and he was able to establish a nation. So she is talking to that dimension of them. She is awakening that in them, or trying to. O you people of honor, the strong supporters of the nation, and those who embraced Islam, what is this shortcoming in defending my right? And what is this slumber while you see injustice being done towards me? Did not the Messenger of Allah, my father, used to say, a man is upheld and remembered in his descendants? How quick have you violated his orders? How soon have you plotted against us? You are still capable of helping me in my attempt, and powerful to support me in that which I request and in my pursuit of it. Or do you say Muhammad has perished? Surely this is a great calamity. Its expanding damage is excessive. Its injury is great. Its wound is much too deep to heal. The earth became darkened with his departure. The stars eclipsed for this calamity. Hopes were seized. Mountains submitted. Sanctity was violated. And holiness was encroached upon and after his death. Therefore this by Allah is the great affliction and the grand calamity. There is not an affliction which is the like of it, nor will there be a sudden misfortune as surprising as this. The book of Allah announced in the courtyards of your houses, in the place where you spend your evenings and mornings, a call, a cry, a recitation, and verses in order. It had previously came upon Allah's prophets and messengers. So she's telling them, yes, it is a grand calamity that the Holy Prophet has passed away. But the Quran has talked about this again and again in your own houses, as you should remember. And what has it said? It has said, a decree, a predestination fulfilled. Muhammad is not but a messenger. Many were the messengers that passed away before him. If he died or was slain, will you then turn back on your heels? So basically, what is she implying here? That they are turning on their heels. O sons of Qayla. So basically, she's talking. The Ansar were two big tribes, Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj. Okay, so she's talking to all of them. Will I be usurped of the inheritance of my father while you hear and see me? And while you are sitting and gathered around me, you hear my call and are included in the news of the affair. You are numerous and well equipped. You have the means and the power and the weapons and the shields. Yet the call reaches you, but you do not answer. The cry comes to you, but you do not come to help. This while you are characterized by good struggle, known for goodness and welfare. The selected group which was chosen, and the best ones selected by the messenger for us. You fought the Arabs, bore with pain and exhaustion, struggled against the nations, resisted their heroes. We were steadfast and so were you. So we would order you and you would obey until Islam became triumphant. The milking efforts of the previous days bore milk. The fort of polytheism was beaten. The outburst of falsehood was subjected. The flames of disbelief were extinguished. The call to foolishness ceased, and the system of religion well erected. So why have you become confused after clarity? Or why conceal matters after announcing them? Or why turned on your heels after daring? Or why associate others with Allah after believing? Will you not fight people who violated their oaths, plotted to expel the messenger, and became aggressive by being the first to assault you? Do you fear them? Nay, it is Allah whom you should merely and justly fear if you believe. Nevertheless, I see that you are inclined to easy living and low morals after you entered into Islam. So you were Muslims for a good long time, sacrificing everything. And now what I see from you, nevertheless, I see that you are inclined to easy living. Now you're after the political alliances. You want to make sure that you are well protected as part of what's happening in the Saqifa. Dismissed he who is more worthy of ordering and prohibiting. Again, Imam Ali alayhi salam. So, now that you are more interested in this life and the easy living of this life, you have dismissed he who is more worthy of ordering, of commanding and prohibiting. More worthy of being the one in charge. More worthy of being the Khalifa. You secluded yourselves with meekness and dismissed that which you accepted. Yet, if you show ingratitude, you and everyone on earth together, Allah is free of all wants, worthy of all praise. Surely I have said all that I have said with full knowledge that you intend to forsake me, and knowing the betrayal that your heart sensed. But it is the overflow of the soul, the effusion of fury, the dissemination of what is in the heart, and a presentation of the proof. I want to make sure that there is no more hujjah, that I have established it clearly for you, what is right and what is wrong, that there are no excuses. And then she says, bag it and put it on the back of an ill she-camel. Bag what? Bag your khilafah. So after all of this, take it, put it in a bag, and put it on top of a she-camel. And then she describes that camel. Bag it and put it on the back of an ill she-camel, which has a thin hump with everlasting disgrace, marked with the wrath of Allah and the shame of eternity, that which leads to the fire of the wrath of Allah, kindled to a blaze, that which mounts to the hearts, for all that you do is in the eye of God. And soon will the unjust assailants know what vicissitudes their affairs will take. And I am the daughter of a warner, the Holy Prophet, to you against a severe punishment. So act, and so will we, and wait, and we shall wait. Up to this point, this is where the sermon ends. There's a lot more that happens after the sermon. I'm out of time. I won't continue much longer for the next events, the next exchanges that took place. There was a little brief exchange between her and Abu Bakr, who tried at that time to kind of appease her and calm her. It did not really work. She went home. And then there was another exchange with Imam Ali alayhi salam. And as we said very briefly last time, this was the major sermon of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. And then she delivered another sermon. And that sermon, inshallah, another day we can read it. And that sermon was specifically addressed to the woman of the Ansar. So obviously this sermon, so I'm just putting the context, keep it in mind, you can look it up, it's a lot shorter. Obviously this created a commotion. Obviously when this was said in the mosque of the Holy Prophet, addressing the Khalifa of the time, obviously this created a lot of talk and a lot of commotion in that community. So the woman of the Ansar came to visit Fatima Zahra alayhi salam in a big, large group, and she delivered another sermon in that gathering, where she talked to them, and it was more open than this one about the Khilafah and about the status and the rank and the position of Imam Ali alayhi salam. As we said, to recap quickly, the first things to keep in mind are the significance of the sermon, the contents of the sermon, as we said, and inshallah, as you saw, is a true crash course of our religion. It goes from the belief systems to the system of rights and their philosophy to the system of ethics, with an insistence on the portion of Imamah and Khilafat, with, of course, an argumentation about Fadak. Very short. It's not the major part of the sermon. The second part, or the second point, is that I think it's clear that if anyone wants to really understand what was happening at that time, now I think when we hear and see bits and pieces of history, things may seem a little bit difficult to put together in one coherent whole. Sometimes when you read what was happening in history, you say it's impossible, it might be an exaggeration. How can it be that the people who were with the Prophet yesterday would turn in this way? It's difficult to imagine, it's difficult to believe. I think with this sermon we have a very good, accurate snapshot of, based on everything that is said and everything that is not said. When you put it together and you say that this is being said right after the passing away of the Holy Prophet, so between 30 days and 90 days after the passing of the Holy Prophet, this sermon was delivered. It changes the entire landscape and how we understand the events that were taking place around the demise of the Holy Prophet. That's two. The third point is the significance of Fadak. So the significance of Fadak and the significance of the sermon of Fadak, both. Yes, as we said, there is an economic and financial dimension to Fadak. We don't neglect, we don't say that's not true. But that's not the main point. There is a political dimension. That's true, but that's not the main point. There is a symbolic resistance to what is taking place. That's one, extremely important. And two, there is a very concerted, intentional, clear effort on the part of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam to use Fadak and to use herself to expose everything that is happening at that time. And that's the secret. That's the significance. That's the importance of Fadak. To expose what is happening. And she did that in every aspect of her life. It's a lot smarter than just looking at the words and the content of the words. There's a strategy here, and it's very far-reaching to the point where we're talking about it today. That's the key. Fadak is not about Fadak. When she comes and she moans in front of everyone and she sighs in this way to make them weep, she reminds them of her relationship with the Holy Prophet and how the Holy Prophet would treat her. And then, in contrast to that, how she is being treated now, this exposes intentions, and it exposes the true intentions of those people who have taken over this religion and the Khilafah of this religion. It exposes everything. And then if you continue and you link the pieces together, and you see that she continued, and we said there's an emotional dimension that is intentional, strategic and intentional. If you link it to the house of sorrows that Imam Ali alayhi salam built for her, if you link it to the fact that, as the Sahih say, and as we started with this hadith, that Allah's pleasure is equal to Fatima's pleasure, and Allah's wrath is equal to Fatima's wrath. And then we have in the Sahih, in multiple hadith, that she died, she was angry with Abu Bakr and Umar from the moment this happened until the moment she passed away. And then they tried again and again to talk to her. Abu Bakr and Umar came and they tried to talk to her and she refused. And then they interceded with who? With Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Imam Ali brought them in the house and brought them to the room of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam so that they could apologize to her and try to calm her. And she did not talk to them, she turned away, she was angry, and she turned away and she refused to talk to them. And after those events, when she finally dies, passes away very shortly afterwards, Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he buries her, he follows her instructions, which were what? Which were that none of the people who participated in the attack on her, none of the people who committed any injustice against her were allowed to perform the prayer for her dead body. That's one. Two, that her grave would be dissimulated. That no one would ever know where her grave was. Why? The why is specifically so that today we ask why. So that we link Fadak, and we link the injustice, and we link the death of Fatima, a girl of 18 or 19, the daughter of the Holy Prophet, who passes away at that age, angry a few 30, 60, 90 days at most after the passing away of the Holy Prophet, miscarrying a child right before, and she passes away. And she instructs the Imam that no one would pray except those who did not commit an injustice against her, one, and two, that her grave would be dissimulated. So that when people come after and say, did she pass away? They hear, she passed away. So where's her grave? No one knows where her grave is. Why doesn't anyone know where her grave is? She didn't want them to know. But why didn't she want them to know? Because she was angry with them. Why was she angry with them? Who were they? What did they do? And that exposes everything. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us understand the sacrifices that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam made for this religion, to understand the significance of those sacrifices and understand those sacrifices for ourselves and understand the responsibility and the accountability we have towards what they sacrificed for. And inshallah, to have it just like it was passed down to us by people who understood its significance over time, that we understand that responsibility and are able to pass it down to those who will come after us. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the very much needed academic lessons. So we know that majalis are very beneficial. Inshallah, tomorrow we have a majlis with Sheikh Vinay, but also these academic lessons are very, very much needed, especially at this time. We can take only one question because the Sayyid has a commitment after this, so we can take only one question. So we give the priority to the sisters. They didn't ask last time. Anyone from the sisters have any questions? Go ahead.
I was wondering if was the Fatima Zahra trying to persuade anyone from the audience, or was it mostly she was just trying to, accuse him? And who was she trying to persuade or convince the audience or in general?
Yeah, so the question is, was Fatima Zahra alayhi salam trying to convince anyone, or was she just simply clearly establishing right and wrong and showing where injustice was taking place? The short answer is she put people in different categories. There's a reason why she addressed Abu Bakr specifically and directly. That's why she said, Yabna Abi Quhafa, you son of Abu Quhafa. And then the way she talked to him was very different than when she talked to Ya Bani Qayla, so the Ansar, for instance. When she talked to them, she praised them. She started by praising them, trying to remind them that they were people with very big merits in Islam. They had sacrificed a lot, and they had supported the Holy Prophet. And the Holy Prophet, basically, she says, we didn't comment on that, but she said, the Messenger of Allah chose you for us. So in other words, it was the Holy Prophet who made it that when he passes away, we are amongst you. So he left us under your care, under your guardianship. So she is definitely trying to awaken that in them. She is definitely trying to say, you were duped, you were tricked, you were deceived, you made mistakes, but it's not too late. Change sides. And if you link that with what history tells us, which is Imam Ali alayhi salam took Fatima Zahra alayhi salam and Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, and they went and they knocked on the doors of the Ansar in Medina, one after the other. And there are people who accepted the call of Imam Ali. We have a number of narrations about this. In one of the narrations, we are told Imam Ali alayhi salam knocked on the doors, and there were 40 men who told the Imam, every time the Imam would say, I need you to join me, and you have to be ready. And the people would say, yes, I am going to be ready. And the Imam tells them, if you are truly ready, then I want you to come meet me tomorrow with a shaved head. And the Imam would go, and 4 people showed up with shaved heads. And this happened the second day, and it happened the third day. So it's not that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam completely gave up. They put people in different categories. There's a category of people, it was almost like it was hopeless. They were the instigators. They were the ones leading. So those people, they're not trying to change their minds. They're trying to show everybody and expose them to everyone. Those people's intentions are different than what you think. They're not really wearing the garment of faith anymore. It's been worn out now. The thorns of hypocrisy have showed on them, so on and so forth. But there are others, and those were the people. Basically, she's telling them, if you've sacrificed so much for Islam, why waste everything now? Now that it should be easy, now that Islam has been established and you did the big sacrifices, this is the time where you can reap the rewards. You just need a little bit of a position. But those people did not, join her in her call. Does it mean that every single one of those people was a bad person? Absolutely not. That deserves its own analysis. We have to put people in different categories. If you look at the companions, even those who were around Imam Ali alayhi salam, if you look at someone like Ammar, Okay, Ammar, he was not a very, respected. He didn't have the social status. He did not have the financial status. He does not have the tribal status. He's just a man. He's not going to make any difference in a tribal context like that. If you look at people like Al-Muqdad and Salman, there's no respect for him because he's not an Arab. In that tribal mentality, it means nothing. So he has no word to say. He has to be put aside. This is where you have to start. If you understand that context, you have to put people in different categories. There are people who wanted to help, but they were afraid. There are people who were completely duped and misguided. There are people who were following life. And then, inshallah, all of this is something for us to keep in mind. Where would I fall at that time, and where do I fall today? Where would I fall? Am I following life, taking the easy path that Fatima Zahra talked about? Or is there something that I'm supposed to be doing that I might be not doing right now? Okay. Inshallah, that's
صلوا على
all.
محمد وآل محمد.